Hey guys, got a bit of an energy update for you guys today. It's going to be maybe a little bit fiery, a little bit like, I ain't tolerating that shit anymore, y'all. And really being able to move into a space of like, no more. But then there's also the essence of betrayal and like, oh my God, like, did I just do that again? Or did that just really happen? Or like completely like cut off from relationships that you're like, what does this happen here? And like the feelings of betrayal or abandonment or just like, oh my God, like what is actually happening? This is like the energies at the moment, right? And also like headaches and like full backaches and just feeling weird, like, and just like somebody's gripping onto you. Because you know what? They are. Yeah. Let's talk about this on an energy update, guys. This is going to be a little bit of an intense one, I think. So let me know how you guys are feeling, how you're holding up with these energies. Yes. Yeah, it's definitely a big piece of what's going on at the moment, right? So as always, let me share this and I shall be fully present with you guys. Because if I concentrate on one thing at a time, I get it done faster. All right. Okay, one more here. There's also another bit of energy at the moment that I didn't put on the title of the live stream. If you're not doing it, it's not going to happen. In a sense of like, we can be like complaining about the things and complaining about the things and complaining about the things, but nobody can actually do it for you. Nobody can actually do the damn thing but you, right? And you can be like doing all the meditation and doing all the things, but if you aren't actually doing the thing, it's not going to happen. And it kind of, I feel like another part of the energy at the moment is like, it's at a point now where you can't, like, you have to do the thing. You know what I mean? Like, we can meditate and do all the like processes we want on like why we're not setting the boundaries. But until you actually voice those words out of your mouth or stop going back to that person who's hurting you, it's not actually going to change. Like, you could do all the meditation and processes you want, but if you're not actually stopping saying the same thing, or, you know, going back to that relationship that's causing you the issues in the first place, like, it's not going to change, guys. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's a thing, right? So let me bring this up so I can see the comments here. Oops, and I'm just going to move this up because I think my head's half cut off. Don't want my head to be half cut off. Just come out of the Manifesting Magic live stream support call in there. All right, let me bring this up. Okay, I was about to meditate, but I'll medicate here instead. Awesome. Joy says hi. Carla says hi. Thanks for asking. Yes. Headaches, neck aches, shoulder aches, feeling exhausted and so tired. Yeah. So there's been a lot of that exhaustion going on. So remember on the last energy update last week, I think it was, and I showed you that big like portal thing, and I was like, oh, it feels like a big, you know, and someone had said they're going to turn it on in October and then in December. And I said, oh, how interesting. And I wonder if that's part of the pull energy that we, like, it, you know, what they said in that is that, you know, they're turning on this massive machine that's basically pulling gravity from our Earth, from our dimension into this black hole vortex. Like, what the fuck? But when they feel, you know, and maybe this is not it, okay? This is one thing, because there's other things that are really important in this as well, right? I feel like when they do that, everyone's like, whoa. However, I really want you guys to check in, okay? When you feel that way, who haven't you cut relationships with that you know you need to? Who is still in your energetic field, even though, like, what's unresolved? Yeah, what is unresolved? Okay, and I'm going to give you real life me time example. And I'm a bit nervous to share this. However, I feel like it's really important that I share it because it's been on my mind, okay? Because I've been really tired and exhausted too. And I know I've been detoxing and all the things. And I've also had the shoulder and the neck and all that sort of stuff. But I've also been seeing a therapist, which is sticking all these needles in and all this sort of stuff to unlock all this stuff that has been sitting there for quite some time whilst I've been building my business, whilst I've been sitting at the computer in this position, right? So I know that that's like stirred up stuff. I know that that's releasing stuff in my body as well. And it's like, you know, and again, when I go through these things, I'm like, oh, it's just me. And then I see all you guys saying this stuff too. And I'm like, oh, is it just me? Right? And so I'm like, well, what else is it? Right? Now, from a personal experience, like the whole like not tolerating that shit anymore is, okay, I'm really nervous to share this. Okay, Joy says, what if it's not necessary to resolve some situations with people that are not toxic? Okay, so when I say resolve, I'm not saying like resolve. I'm saying if there's unfinished words or something, and again, like you don't need to open that door back up, okay? But what I'm about to share is just giving you a prime example. So when I came back on the coast, I caught up with my ex, saw my ex, and maybe I shouldn't have, but I did, right? And I'm really fucking nervous to share this. So I did. And, you know, it was like, it was okay. It was normal. It's a little bit kind of weird, but it was just like, oh, whatever sort of thing. And then like it got to a point and I was really clear. I was super clear that actually what the issue is that we have different values about what family is to us. Yeah? I have very different belief systems about family to what he does. Yeah. And so with the difference in value systems, the relationship's never going to work because our highest priorities in our everyday life, because of the family value systems, is going to cause issues all the friggin' time, because what's important to one person is not going to be important to the other person, because the values underneath about what we believe family should be or is for us is very, very different. Yeah. I was super clear on that. And I was also like, wow, this is why it hasn't worked for like 5 years, because we have very different value systems, right? But in the past, I never knew what a value system was. And as a recovering codependent, that's something I had to learn. People were like, what do you value? And I'm like, what does that mean? I didn't even know what a boundary was or how to set a boundary, let alone a value system. But what I also realized is that value systems are also how you implement your boundaries. And what's a value system? It's what's important to you. What's really, really important to you. Yeah, what's important to you? That creates your value system. And then that creates the actions that you take in your day-to-day life because you're doing what's most important to you. Now, if those values are not in alignment in a relationship, they're going to clash, right? And for the first time for me, and even in my relationship when I went to Victoria at the start of this year on the road trips, even though it was hell, it showed me how far I've actually come. And it showed me how much I've actually grown. Because I was really clear about what was going on, and I was approaching the situation from a very conscious, grounded, non-abusive place. And that's a first for me. Well, not a first, but compared to who I used to be 5 to 10 years ago, very different place. Very different person. I still love that, Hannah, but very different place. And the point of why I'm sharing this is because this recent incident, right? So just before my birthday, the conversation came up and he ended up hanging up on me because he thought that I was yelling at him. Now, I was processing this last night and it actually made me sad because I wasn't yelling. However, I know that my energy sometimes feels like I'm yelling. Even today, so it's just like, Mum, you're yelling, and I'm not. I'm just speaking. Like, this is my energy. I speak, I'm loud, this is who I am. Sometimes that's overpowering for people, and I'm conscious of that now. Whereas in the past, I wouldn't really care. But these days I'm conscious that it's not just me yelling, it's my energy that's really strong for people. And it's not that I dim that, but I am conscious of it. And this is what I learned at the start of this year with that relationship, was how big my energy is and how much that stirs up for people, right? And so it's not about hiding that, but it's really about coming into the power of that and where I place my time and energy because of that, yeah? So coming back to what I was processing, that I wasn't yelling, but the point where I can see that he thought it was yelling was when I fucking had enough. Because we were having conversation and I was saying, well, actually, I was really trying to put on the table. I'm like, well, it's not going to work because our value systems of what we believe about family is different. And he would cut me off and he'd say, no, Hannah, it's your feelings. It's always been your problem. It's you have an issue with my family and my mum and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, we've got different value systems about what family is to us. He's like, no, Hannah, it's your feelings and it's your problem and it's always been you. And I'm like, it was on, and he kept cutting him off. And I said, enough. I said, and that's where I can see that the yelling came in. And that's when he hung up. Now, the old Hannah would have chased and chased and chased, and no, I left it. Now, the old Hannah would have done that. Chased. I didn't. For a week, I was waiting. Subconsciously waiting. Didn't realize I was waiting. I was subconsciously waiting for him to say, hey, I'm sorry I hung up on you. Hey, sorry, sorry I fucking hung up on you to start with. Would have been great. I didn't realize I was subconsciously waiting. It was a couple of days before my birthday, actually. It wasn't even birthday, happy birthday, nothing. It's like, oh, this is really interesting. Really fucking interesting. And that day, when I did that on the solar plexus, and I did that live stream, and I was really angry, and people would see me as incapable and all this shit. On that really angry day that I had, I also texted him, and I'm like, I was like, that's enough. I was like, I can't believe that you still haven't even apologized for hanging up or anything. And there was just nothing. And I was just like, wow, this is so amazing. And it was just and in myself, I just couldn't really believe that someone would just go that long without any sort of communication or anything. Do you know what I mean? I was just like, man, this is weird. For me, I can't really fathom that in a way, I need to communicate. I need that conscious communication. I've realized that's a deep value that I have, and I actually need that in relationship. There was no way I can have a relationship without conscious communication. And what was really interesting is that, when I was contemplating this, because I don't know, is it over the weekend or something? It was just text messages normal. And I'm like, oh no, it was on Saturday night. It was just this whole oh no, because it was last weekend actually. I was getting messages it was all cryptic, and I fucking hate that shit too. I'm like, what are you trying to say here? Can you just actually say what you're trying to say? And again, it's all text message, and I'm like, man, what are you actually trying to say? It's oh, I don't want to sound like an asshole. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? I'm like, just say what you really want to say. And then there was just nothing. And I'm like, man, and I knew it was something, because he's stalking my page, obviously. Oh, you help all these people, but you don't live it. It's all what he's always said, right? And now I actually do live it, but he doesn't want a bar of it. It's interesting, right? So this whole thing, at the end of that 5 years, I was when he turned around and said, I actually don't love this new Hannah. And I'm like, what are you talking about? This is the Hannah that you've always said was deep inside of me, and now I'm that person, and now you're telling me you don't love me? I knew that was the end for me, right? And so, you know, again, last weekend, like, it was so cryptic. I don't know if he'd taken something or whatever, because none of the messages were making sense. But I was like, he wanted to say something along the lines of, you help all these people with all this stuff, but you don't live it. And I'm like, man, we haven't been together for years. How would you know? And it's just really interesting that then there was nothing. And then on the weekend, and I want to point out, guys, with these sorts of relationships, for me personally, what I have experienced is that on the weekends is when we hear from them. On the weekends is when we feel it. Yeah, we feel them more. I struggle on the weekends because I know I'm feeling my exes. Why? Because they've got more fucking time on their hands. People are like, oh, I can't wait for the weekend. And I'm like, man, I get my most creative work done on the weekends. I'm like, I love the weekends because I'm busy working. I love it. It's my creative time. I'm sitting around bored. I'm like, don't even talk to me about that bored thing again, right? And so I'm like, oh, here we go. It's the weekend. Hearing from him again. And yeah, I should probably block him. But there's a reason that I hadn't yet. And I guess subconsciously, I was still waiting for the apology for hanging up on me before my birthday. And I didn't even realize this, right? Even when I, you know, sent him a message a couple of weeks ago, there's still nothing. And I was like, oh, maybe he was with somebody. And now that he's not with somebody, he's come back to me. It's like kind of interesting, right? And then he's even saying to me, oh, so how many men have you spoken to since, like, we haven't, like, you know, been talking since I hung up on you? And I'm like, none. I'm putting my business. Like, that is my high priority. I'm like, I don't want to entertain like just a thing on the weekends or like, well, no, definitely not with someone who is not open for conscious communication, you know, and even like the other day, we're coming up to like Noosa to go for a walk and stuff, like, and I was just like, he's like, you know, you can join us. And I'm like, I just screenshotted like the previous messages like from ages ago. Like, are you going to explain like this thing, or didn't even apologize? Like, what are you trying to say? You know, obviously you want to say something, you're not saying it, like all this cryptic shit. And then like, just it's back to normal. Like, you want to come for a walk with us? And I'm like, what? And I just screenshotted and like put a circle and like sent it. And I'm like, he's like, oh, I don't feel like going into that today. And I said, well, I'm sorry, but I have no interest in a relationship that sweeps shit under the carpet for weeks on end and then comes back and thinks it's like all pretending it's all normal. I said, I'm not interested in an unconscious relationship. Not tolerating that anymore. No. Like, and the thing is what's kind of like, what's the word? Not shocked me, surprised me, right? What has surprised me is that that's normal for people. There is numerous clients that I've had over the years that not talking for weeks on end and sweeping shit under the carpet and then pretending everything is okay is normal. And yeah, it is normal for some people, but that is not the style of relationship that I want. I don't want it. I'm choosing to not have an unconscious relationship. And if I have to wait and wait and wait for a conscious relationship, that's what I'm willing to do. Because there is no way that I will sit in stuff for weeks and weeks, which by the way is what I used to do in the start of our 5-year relationship back in 2013. That's how I used to be. And then the first 2 years were like that. And then after that, that's when I got all that work and worked with my mentor, like session after session after session after session, and like did all this work and became the person that he said I was inside, and he wasn't attracted to that anymore. And that was at the end of that 5 years, and I knew that was done then. And then this stuff now, like to see that play out over the past few weeks. And then like for me, and so when I say not tolerating that anymore, and when I said, you know, because I think Joy said that sparked this conversation was, you know, but we don't, what if it's not necessary to resolve some situations with people that are toxic? And so the point that I'm sharing this for is that, yeah, like we definitely, like I'm not resolving that situation with him. I don't want to be with him. I don't want it anywhere near me because I don't want an unconscious relationship that for like 2 months is like no communication. And then, hey, let's go for a walk at Noosa, like, and everything's fine. And I'm like, excuse me? I'm like, you hung up on me, didn't even apologize or acknowledge it, and then you just want me to like pretend everything's all right. I'm like, you're talking to me? For serious? Oh my fucking God. Not tolerating that anymore. No. And so when you say, Joy, what if it's not necessary to resolve some situations with people that is toxic? And like, no, that's definitely not resolving that. But the piece that I'm talking about here is that unconscious communication, the lack of communication about that incident had been sitting there in the field, in my energy field. Me still going, wow, I can't believe that he actually did that. If he's really the conscious man person that he told me that he was, that wouldn't happen. That would not happen, nor would not even acknowledging or apologizing for hanging up on me. Days before my birthday, mind you, right? So when you say that, what if it's not necessary to resolve some situations with people that are toxic? Yeah, no, right? Not resolving that. However, for me personally, that lack of communication about the incident and about everything that happened, like sitting in the field and the cutoff and no like communication. So not waiting for an apology, Joy. No, like it's like for me, and again, apology, I don't fucking care. It's the change behavior that is the apology, right? Because even when he said it, like, you know, I had to prompt him. I was like, you know, you want me to go for a walk with you at Noosa, but you haven't even apologized? I'm like, let alone like ignored me for weeks, or like I hadn't been contacting him, but just in the weird, like even the cryptic stuff last week, like, oh, you're like, if I say it, I'm going to be like an asshole. And I'm like, what do you want to voice, for God's sake? Like, what is it? Because he's like, oh, I said, what is it about, you know, our relationship or whatever that was so bad? And he said, oh, I'm not even talking about our relationship. It's you with the problem, is basically what he said. And I'm like, well, what is it? Tell me what the issue is. Tell me what it is that I've done. What am I holding on to? What is it? And he's like, yeah, what are you holding on to? You know, I was like, well, what is it about us? Like what? And he's like, it's not even about us. And I'm like, this does not make sense. This confusion, narcissistic fucking shit, like no, right? Oh my God, you want to talk about being tired, exhausted, feeling like somebody is like, yeah, on you? This energy, this like in the shoulders, neck, headaches, tension. This is why I'm speaking about it, guys, because even though I don't want to resolve the situation, I don't want to be with him. No. Right? But that bit of communication we had, and for me, it was like he was being the nicest person ever, like in August and everything. And then all of a sudden it was like switch. And I was like, what the fuck did I do? Right? Like that's kind of where I was coming from. And then and the switch. And then for these weeks, I was like, what have I done here? Like, you know, that's the thing. Like, and he hung up on me and I was like, what did I do? Like, do you know what I mean? And so the reason that I'm sharing this is because that was sitting unresolved. Like, it's not that I want to resolve it and be with him and all that stuff, but that incident, even the lack of communication or like him being cryptic the week before, that sitting in my field was like heavy, draining, toxic, like somebody's got a hold. And then like, you know, oh, let's go for a walk at Noosa and pretend everything's okay. And I'm like, man, like, what about this stuff? Like, for me, it's just a no-go zone, right? And the thing is that is like, you know, and he's like, well, don't contact me again. Like, you know, you always do this. And I'm like, man, like this, you hung up on me? Like, I'm like, you expect me to want to hang out with you when you hung up on me? Like, how does that, like, doesn't make logical sense to me at all. No logical sense at all, right? And so that sitting in my field, because as soon as he cut off, I was like, oh, I feel normal again. I feel like I want to live stream. I feel Hannah again. I feel happy. I don't feel that weight on my friggin' shoulders. And so, and it doesn't matter about how much sage. It doesn't matter about how much energy cleaning. It doesn't matter about this stuff. And this is why I'm sharing this, guys, because if you have unresolved stuff with relationships sitting in your aura, sitting in your field, it drains you, it depletes you, it pulls you down. It makes you feel like you've got this stuff and it's like, yeah. It does, right? And so we can like blame it on the moon and blame it on the stars and blame it on those people doing all this dark black stuff on the planet. At the end of the day, if you're not cleaning up the dark unresolved stuff, the unconscious stuff in your field, that's what's dark. That's what's draining. When there is unconscious, unresolved shit in relationships, in your life, whether they are past relationships or whether they are still connected in current day, everyday life, you will be drained and exhausted no matter how many meditations you do, no matter how many sticks of Palo Santo or sage you go through. Yeah? It's a thing. If there is unresolved stuff, it's going to be pulling at your energy. Again, I'm not saying that you have to open up communication and open up doorways to people from your past that, you know, like your stuff there, but in yourself, you need to resolve that. Yeah? Okay. So I know there's comments here, and I wasn't planning to really talk about that, but I feel like I need to talk about that as a way to explain it. Because like when there's this and we can blame it on these moons and we can blame it on the negative Satan people on the planet, at the end of the day, you're playing with Satan by having this unresolved, unconscious stuff in your field because it's black. Unconsciousness is darkness. Unconsciousness plays in your subconscious field and it's a big black hole and it drains you. Yeah? All right, so let me go through these comments. So Joy says, like, heal your heart through meditation and ceremony. Yeah, but sometimes it's about having the conscious communication, even if that person isn't conscious, to end it. So the reason that I'm sharing that, so the point that I'm sharing that is because like that communication that still went on and I didn't block him or anything like that, and it was still cryptic shit, and I'm like trying to consciously like, no, like, and then like, let's go for a walk at Noosa, and I'm like, dude, like, what about, oh, I don't feel like going into it today. And I'm like, well, I'm sorry, but I don't want to have a relationship or any sort of friendship with someone who sweeps shit under the carpet and that's normal for them. I don't want an unconscious relationship. And so then it ended. And so that energetically, it's done. Not like, oh, like 6 weeks later, like, let's hang out. Like, what? I'm like, do people live like that? And I'm like, yeah, they do. And it is normal. And yes, it's dysfunctional, but it's definitely not a relationship that I want. It's definitely not. I want a conscious relationship. Like, that's what I want. And some people live in dysfunction and that's normal and that's fine, but that's definitely not what I choose. So when you are in those sorts of situations and you see that that is unconsciousness, and it is, you know, nobody's conscious all the time, but when there's shit that gets swept under the carpet for 6 weeks and they're like, you know, it's all nasty, and then like, let's pretend it's all okay and go for a walk, and like, it's all like, no, like that's like, whoa. Like sitting under there, and you wonder why you got health issues, you wonder why there's stuff, you know, not manifesting, or it's like getting worse. It's like, yeah, that shit that gets swept under the carpet, that shit goes stagnant and moldy and rank under there. Like, that's in your energy field, right? So Carla says, also I had a negative male presence show up twice while I was meditating. Later I meditated again with angels, and that presence tried to come in again and immediately dissolved into the light. Yeah, awesome. I know you just started working with me and you've signed up to Transcendence, Carla. So when you say that was a first for me, I'm like, yeah, that's what happens when people start working with me. It's like I have this, like, I guess it's the reality of reality awareness. So I love that. I love that. It's so awesome. Yes. So Joy says, yes, values and morals need to be on the same page or conflict will come up. Yes. Thanks, Carla. My vulnerability. Sometimes I'm like, but at the same time, I need to share this. Yes, yes, yes. Hi, Deborah. Thank you, Sarah. Loves me in pink. I love me in pink too. So Joy said, my ex used to tell me you're yelling when I wasn't. He just didn't want to hear what I had to say because he was in the wrong. Yeah. And it's not about right or wrong, but when somebody can't, you know, like open to the point of view, or, you know, and as I said, like, I wasn't saying, no, it's not like your family, or like, you know, it's like in the past, it was all about me. It was my emotions, but I didn't even understand back then that we had different value systems about what family matters to us. Like, now I see that, and I was trying to explain that, but he's obviously at the consciousness level that he doesn't even know what values are either. And that's been clear over the past few weeks. I'm like, okay. Narcissistic, yes, but apparently I'm the narcissistic one. And I know that I was in the start of our relationship. However, I took that on board. I did the freaking work and I changed, right? But he still sees me as that person in 2013, and that's not who I am anymore. So Christina says, my kids tell me, why are you always yelling? And I tell them I'm not. I'm just talking. Maybe I'm carrying other people's energy or trying to figure out why people are so mean. Yeah. So definitely when we're carrying other people's energy, or we've had that, we definitely pass it on energetically to our kids, and then our kids will go and fight with each other, or they'll go and hit the animals. And that's like called the hot potato. And that's why if the husband comes home from work and he's been yelled at or had a bad day, he'll throw it at the wife, and then the wife will throw it at the kids, and then the kids will throw it at the animals or with each other. So important to clear the energy and to be doing that constant work about that. And the self-care. Self-care is like the biggest thing ever. So Laurel says the communication should be over as you communicated that you had different values. Exactly. But apparently it was all my emotions and still being blamed. And I was just like, and I just got off the phone, like, because I could see it plain as day. But I think part of my sadness was that I'm realizing that he's not the person who I thought he was either, right? It's interesting. Which is a big grief thing, you know, when we have those realizations that we have all these high value systems, or we have this, you know, like we know what we want, and then when the person in front of us is, when we have the cold hard smack bang in reality realization that the person in front of us is not who we thought they were. And it's not like, you know, I don't know how to describe it. So we have this, like, we're like, yeah, this is how a relationship works, and we try and do it with this person, and they show us like they're not, they don't have the capacity to hold that level of relationship that we know is possible when we're doing. And so they can't meet us at that. And that's, you know, and all the shit happens. But if we can stay true and clear, like I've just shared with the value systems, I was like, but this is what it is. And, you know, it was still hurtful in a sense, because I was realizing that he doesn't have the capacity to hold that. And I also choosing not to have a relationship with somebody who can't hold that. There are people, there are women, there are men who stay in relationships with people who don't have the same capacity to hold the relationship consciousness as them. Like, there are people out there, and people choose to have that, and that's fine. If you can fully accept that person for who they are and not wanting to change them, and can be conscious with them, with their level of consciousness, that's a relationship that you can choose to have. But that's just not what I'm choosing to have. I actually want an equal balanced consciousness relationship that will grow together in divine consciousness. Like, that's what I do really truly value and want, right? So yeah, exactly that, Laurel. It should have been over as you communicated that we have different values. Exactly. Like, easy, right? Sarah says you do live it. Yes, I do now. Maybe back in 2013 I wasn't, but hey, I took that on board, what was being said to me over and over and over again, and did work and changed. Like, that's what we're supposed to do, right? So Josephine says, oh my God, he doesn't see you at all, which I can relate to. Yeah. Thanks, Christina. I'm a beautiful soul. Thanks. I'm really looking at myself like that too. Valuing myself in that way. Actually seeing who I am. And I think when we start to actually come into seeing who we are, who is around us, who doesn't see us, hurts us, because we're realizing that too. And, you know, and that's when our value systems and our self-worth increase, because we're like, well, actually, I want a conscious relationship, and this person can't hold the capacity of that. Whilst I could choose to accept them, I'm also choosing that I actually want a conscious relationship, because for me personally, being with someone who is unconscious in an intimate relationship drains me. It really drains my soul. It is not supportive to me continuing in my life purpose work at the capacity that I want to and choose to, and feels alive and an alignment for me, if I'm staying with somebody who is in a relation, you know, who is not at that capacity. Let's just call it. Samantha, glad you caught me live. Yes. Josephine says, yes, access denied to anyone who cannot have a conscious communication. Yeah. Yeah. Stand your ground. Yeah. And that's the big thing on boundaries like that, you know. Thanks, Tammy. Thanks for sharing. Yeah. Thanks, guys, because this is how I used to share all the time. And I'm getting back to it because it's how I learn, by going through things. And it's how, you know, I teach as well. Oh, so thank you for listening, guys, and acknowledging that. Not that I needed it, but it's just like, okay, cool, it's all right. It's okay to share, Hannah. It's okay. I think because I've been shut down over the years as well, because I always used to share like this, and then they're like, why are you sharing that on my stream? Why are you doing that? And I'm like, man, this is just what I do. If you don't like it, leave my life, please. So the man that I'm going to be with in that conscious communication, this is what we do together, because this is normal for us. See what I'm creating? So Joy says, it is normal for many, but it's highly dysfunctional. Yeah, and that's just our society that we've been brought up in. That's, you know, but we're changing that. And when we are the way showers that are the leaders who are changing the norm and changing the norm, it's frowned upon, but in maybe 50 years time, this will be normal. Yeah. On point, says Deborah. Carla says, so relate to this. I love how you are handling this, Hannah. You're amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Joy says, right, we have to bless and release in our heart and pray for them. It's so hard to do. I'm not praying for them. I'm praying for me, because in praying for me, I pray for them. So yeah, so I mean, maybe I was holding on to an apology, but I didn't feel like I was. I was more in shock because it was so beautiful and amazing. And then snap, like within 3 days, woof, and I'm like, whoa, what just happened, man? Like, what just happened? So full on. Hell no. Very narcissistic, it's draining, yeah. And I want to point out, like, it gets draining and narcissistic when we know that we're not supposed to be in it, and it just, you know, it just, you know, like I wrote a blog a while ago, you know, like the number one reason women stop trusting their men is because we know in our intuition that we're supposed to leave a certain relationship and we don't. And because we're not trusting ourselves, then we project it onto them. But we also feel the truth that they are engaging emotionally and having emotional affairs and all that sort of thing, because they're not fully committed to us. But we know that, but we hang around. And as soon as we stop trusting ourselves, it turns into attachment rather than love. And that's when all the shit goes bad. And then they call us narcissistic and us crazy, and we're acting in behaviors and ways that we know are not us. And then they point the finger at us and go, see, look at the way you're behaving. No wonder I'm leaving you, blah, blah, blah. And we're just like, what? And it's like 10 times worse because we know back way when we should have left ages ago. Yeah, it's fucked, right? It's fucked. Samantha said, I had something similar has just happened to me this weekend. Yeah, and I want to point out too, so I know I put in this like energy update, like relationships gone, door shut in your face or theirs, out of the blue, life-changing directions. The title of that live stream wasn't specifically what I was talking about for myself and what I just shared. For some reason, I didn't share that. But also like the relationships and out of the blue, closing the doors. I've had a lot of clients and a lot of people messaging me just going, oh my God, like just like random relationships, like doctors won't see them anymore, or like friends that have been there for a long time saying, no, I'm not doing that anymore. Or like, you know, like just real cut off out of the blue, like, wow, how come this is not happening anymore? Or people coming into their work and their career sector and like stealing their work or whatever because they didn't set boundaries, you know. And by the way, little side note, if people are coming into your business and then stealing your ideas and going and implementing it and you're not doing it, it's because you're not doing it. If you're not following your intuition and doing the thing, then other people are going to come in and, you know what I mean? Like, do the thing. Do the thing you're passionate about. Or people will come in and do your thing for you and you'll get jealous and envious about it because you're not doing it. But if you're doing the thing and they go and copy you, you won't really care because nobody can copy you anyway and you're doing what you really want to be doing, right? Really important. So I just wanted to share that as well. Yeah, went through that 1.5 years ago. Yeah, I had to be ready to let go for life. It wasn't easy. And that's the thing. We have to be ready for sure. Like, it's definitely a readiness thing. Looking forward to Transcendence. Oh yeah, Transcendence starts in 2 days, guys, and then we've got our full moon ceremony. So it starts on Friday, and then on Saturday is our full moon ceremony. And in Transcendence, you get access to the full moon ceremony for the next 2 months because it's Halloween on the full moon. And as I kept saying, it's going to be a really heavy energy. And the past 2 weekends, you guys have been feeling it, right? Including up to even all the like, gripping on, headaches, neck, shoulders, like, oh my God, what's going on, right? And so this energy like is, you know, and I feel like Halloween, this full moon is going to be like a raw, like, and that's why I was purposely guided to run Transcendence starting on Friday, the day before the full moon, and leading over the next 6 weeks right up until the 21st of December, which is when that next portal comes in. So Transcendence starts, the link is in the title of this live stream, or you can find it on my page. This is where we are literally like unplugging from the darkness. That includes the physical relationships around you. It includes the big picture portal galactic stuff going on the planet, and being able to work, you know, more into the higher frequency and high dimensional realms, because over that Christmas New Year portal, so back in July, my draconian being who's been coming in, giving me information like about all the COVID stuff and then everything that happened, he also said that he actually said 25th of December, so Christmas, until the 1st of January. Now people were saying the 21st of December, and on some of the stuff that I've read about 21st of December, they'd actually said that energy won't kick in for 2 to 3 days, and I'm like, oh, well, that's in alignment with what the draconian being told me of the 25th to the 1st, and it's a really high frequency. Like when I see it, it's like a blue platinum sparkle color light, like I can see it as I talk about it, and that is really infiltrating into our planet and into our body. And if we don't have the capacity to hold, if we're still plugged into all these draining sources on a physical level, an emotional level, physical level, it's going to really wipe you. But Transcendence is specifically designed to be able to rise with this high frequency and to pull the rest of humanity up with us, not in a draining way. It's just our natural vibration will allow that doorway for other people to come with us, and that is like the big separation. That's the other thing I wanted to say. So you know how they said like in that December portal there's like 2 earths separating, like earth's gonna separate, right? And people have been messaging me saying like, oh my god, Hannah, like these relationships just ended, like this was out of the blue, like I can't believe this just happened, right? Literally, again, not intimate relationships, but like physical, like friendships or whatever, career, medical relationships, whatever, just close, right? And they're like, oh my god, I feel abandoned, I feel betrayed, like what's happening? And I said, well, you know how the earth is splitting into, like, I don't think it's a physical thing, I think it's a metaphoric analogy for the energy, right? Analogy that's going on. And so this splitting of the energy of the earth and our consciousness, what's actually happening is the physical relationships now that are like no more, done, complete, door shut, slammed in your face, whoa, did that just happen? That's a physical aspect of the earth splitting. Does that make sense? That's the physical aspect of the earth splitting of what they're trying to describe, the energy that's happening. Those people can't stay in your life anymore. You are not choosing that path anymore. If you hadn't been listening, it's doing it for you. Yeah? Not supposed to be on that path. So as hard and as confronting as that is, when we actually look at where we're heading and what we really want, we know it's not that anyway. Yeah? So, yeah. All right, so Transcendence, that's what that's about. So send me a message if you want any information about Transcendence, or you can find it on my page. We start in 2 days, guys. One of the most powerful 6 weeks ever coming up. And I know that's a big call, but this shit's real. This is going to be big. Yeah, so Josephine says, thank you for sharing all of that. It's just truly helping me cement my closure. Okay, awesome. Yeah. Samantha said, you just made me realize how I consciously ended it this weekend. I was no way letting it drag on because he wanted a break, totally cut off from him. Yeah, the on-off break thing, yeah. It's like, you know, oh, I don't want to be with you, but I don't want to lose you because I'm scared of being on my own and you're convenient for me. So let's just go on a break and I'll come back when I'm ready. Like, yeah, no more. Yeah, Josephine said, value system. I wish someone had taught me that what is all about growing up. I know, right? This shit needs to be taught in schools. Hello, my life purpose, big picture. Yeah, Lisa says, narcissists always blame the other. Yeah. Therese says, I always have this thing, how is this person or situation serving me? If it's not serving you, it's time to let go. Block him. Yes, I will now, definitely. Therese says, you can knock and knock on a wall, but it will never be a door. I love that. Yes, so much to that. Laura says, yes, it hurts when they can't share our values, another loss. Yeah, and it's just like realizing that, you know, and knowing as well with 8 billion people on the planet, there's someone that does have the same value system that is. It just takes a letting go of what is not working to find what is, because we can't open that new door. Well, we can, but when all this other stuff is infiltrating and still here, you're only going to open the door to more of this because it's still here, right? So when we need to close that door, have a space and a break, which is really uncomfortable for a lot of people, trust me, I know, right? But when we can be comfortable with space and we get really clear on all this stuff, and then we can open the door consciously and consciously walk forward into dating and consciously be doing that stuff, that's when we consciously align with someone in our value systems, because we're not just jumping in and also all this stuff isn't still infiltrating. And by the way, when we open this and we've still got this, we attract people who've still got the baggage too, and it's like, blah, right? Everybody's got baggage, but when we haven't consciously closed that and have that space, then that's going to open the door and have more of that. But when we can consciously open the door with space, well, then there's also going to be space with that person, yeah? That's what I'm consciously doing now. So Lisa says, thanks to you, I'm learning about believing in myself and what my levels of self-worth, and that my beliefs and values do matter. I know we're told that they don't, right? And it's our problem, and you need to see a therapist and see how you're acting. See, that's why I told you you're psycho and you need to go into a mental ward. What, because we have a strong value system about what's important to us? Yeah, no, thanks, mate. No. Took me a while to get here, trust me, but it's a thing. Yeah, it's a thing. It's a thing. Yes, your self-worth and your beliefs and your values do matter. And you have shown me not to settle and to help identify what my values really are. Thank you. Oh, thanks, Lisa. I feel touched. I'm so grateful that could help you. Laurel says, we need all your sharing. Thanks, guys. Okay, see what happens when I share my heart. See, I stopped doing this. It's really important, right? Joy says, yeah, I don't like how you're acting, but yet we wouldn't be acting like that if they were fully committed. I know, and that's a thing, right? And so for me personally, going into the dating game consciously, when I sense that somebody isn't that full commitment, like it's not, you know, like that's when we need to leave and walk away and be okay with that. It doesn't have to be a great big drama like I've always made it to be in the past, right? Whereas now it's just like, okay, like, can we consciously do this? Well, what I tried to do on a couple of weeks ago, and I was just like, wow, it's all my problems. I don't think so. You know, we've just got different value systems. Like, why can't that's just the reality of it, not my problems, not my feelings, not my emotions, not me have to like compromise and like change my value system and what's important to accept your value systems and do your life. That would be being people pleaser me, and I'm not that person anymore. So no, I'm sorry, but we're just not aligned. Yep. So Josephine says, yes, definitely need to be ready thing. It took me over 10 years to be ready. It takes what it takes, and that's okay. Yeah. So Carol says, oh my God, Hannah, this just happened to me with the guy. I was like, what the fuck? It's like, what happened? Yeah. Carol says, universe sends such a beautiful message. Beautiful souls when I need a message. Oh, I'm glad that helped. Ivy says, thank you for your words. I separated 4 months ago. Wow, I'm listening and nodding. So much has been happening to me. Yeah, you're going to sign up. Yeah, Transcendence is next level powerful. Different frequency to what I've ever brought in before, and so needed at this time. So deeply, deeply humbled to be bringing this through right now. So yeah. So just checking that I covered everything on this live stream. So why has this happened again? Damn, lesson learned, universe, but ouch. Yeah. And so the thing is, like, I feel like there's two pieces of us in a way. There's, you know, two different webs going through stuff. So there's those people who are like, yeah, not tolerating this anymore, done, like real, like stepping into that self-worth and that, you know, like actually no, right? And then there's another group of people who are still not strong in setting those boundaries, and so the doors are being shut on their face in a way, right? And so, you know, and there's no judgment, right or wrong, good, bad, you're not there yet, it's none of that. It's just where I'm seeing two groups of people. You know, I always see there's a web of these people and a web of these people, and like when we're up, down, whatever. But it's just like, you know, and like I just got off the Manifesting Magic live stream support call this morning, and this came up around the boundaries, and she's like, what's the problem here? Like, why isn't it happening? Why is it, you know? And I'm like, the only problem, the only block is that you haven't set the boundaries yet. And those boundaries can't be set from, you know, I mean, like, yes, we need to heal inner child and past life and do all the inner work and blah, 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 blah. But it comes to a point where the only block is you not voicing the words out of your mouth. Nobody can do that for you. Like, yes, we need to do the inner work, but if you've done all of that and you're still trying to find the answer here, no, the answer's not here. The answer is saying, no, this is not okay anymore. This is my boundary. Nobody can voice those words for you. You have to do that. And in the start, it's scary, and we're like, yeah, we're like struggling or whatever it is, or whatever we're scared of, whatever, like scared of rejection or whatever, usually, right? It's usually the thing. And like expect to be, you know, met up against stuff, and just know that that's it. Just hold your ground, hold your ground, hold your ground, hold your ground. And those people will disappear or they will rise with you, right? But that's the only thing blocking you, is actually voicing those words or closing that door or saying, no, that's not okay. If you continue, I'm going to have to call the police. Like, it's a thing, guys. It's called harassment when they won't respect your boundaries. Okay. All right. So lesson learned. Yes, but ouch, right? So if you've had doors slammed in your face, just check in. Like, where did I know that I needed to end that relationship and I kind of didn't? Like, you know, there's some point where we know that. So yes. So Lisa says, I'm loving your emotion. I'm sitting here jumping in my seat with you and feeling everything. Yes. Yes, it's definitely that. Joy says, yes, the boundaries. Yeah, it's definitely a thing, right? It's definitely a thing. So I just wanted to pull a card to confirm everything that we're talking about on this energy update, and be mindful, right, of the full moon coming up. We stepped into the 3-day window today. Now the energy might get more intense. Things might come more to light to you. You might have more aha moments or more realizations, and you might break down crying more about it. Like, that's the full moon energy, right? And smack bang in your face. Now, Transcendence, you guys have probably seen Transcendence, the color. It's like all the blue. Check out the card that I pulled. And it's the freedom card. I know it's back to front. I've changed the camera around. Freedom. I possess the power and the free will to create my own happiness. Ta-da! I read that back to front and back to front. So how amazing though that that's the color. So you saw me shuffling the cards earlier, and I felt called to stop. Look at this. The bottom card of the deck is guilt, and that's the sacral chakra. If you had the sacral chakra stuff, like that's, like if you watch the sacral chakra live stream and the heart chakra live stream, right? The problem with this, everybody wants this, yeah? But the problem is that the speaking it, like most of us have done the work, but the work is the outer and actually implementing the inner work we've changed and created the person to be. And if we don't do that in synchronistic balance, that's when we get depressed, pulled down, more shit happens, and all it takes is like, sorry, honey, no. The thing that comes up is guilt. The more you say no and get comfortable in that, the more the guilt is not there. In the start of putting those boundaries in place, you're going to feel guilty. And if you act, the reason we go back on our word, or that we go back and we like, oh, hang on, I can do that. Oh, actually, yeah, okay, let's go back. Because you're acting on guilt. And when you act on guilt, oh, it's like when all hell breaks loose, right? So in the guilt, it's very sacral chakra, orange, yeah? And what did I say? All the attachments live in your sacral chakra. The relationships, third eye, we're seeing the truth, and they're nourished in our sacral chakra. And this is the live streams we've been doing all these couple of weeks. The guilt, right, is what holds us in our womb, which is the gestating of our purpose. Everyone's like, what's my life purpose? Oh my gosh, I just saw like this massive big flash of light. You guys didn't see that, did you? I was like, what is that? And then it kept traveling. Sorry, that distracted me. That was really big. That was one of the biggest ones I've seen. Okay. All right. So good. Okay. What was I talking about? That fully distracted me. Guilt, sacral chakra, birthing our purpose. People are like, what is my purpose? And they're like, but I've got all this relationship going on. I'm like, we need to clean that out. Why? Because it sits in your sacral chakra and you feel guilty about leaving, which is the very thing that's going to give you the freedom, right? But when you can actually walk through the guilt anyway, you have to know, like, yes, there's processes and stuff we can do to clean out your womb and blah, 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 blah. You're going to feel guilty the first time you say no when you're changing something in your life. Like, walk straight through it. Feel guilt and do it anyway. You know how they say feel the fear and do it anyway? Feel guilt and do it anyway. Because at the end of the day, this is what everybody's craving, and the thing that's the one block, right? Everyone's like, what's blocking me? And I'm like, have you actually voiced it? Have you actually put it into action? And they're like, but what about what meditation? I'm like, no, have you actually put it into practice? I'm like, we could go digging in the past. We could, and that's important at times. But it also comes into the thing between you and this is actually saying it. It's actually doing the thing. Yeah? Huge. How amazing that that's the same color as Transcendence. I love it. Those blues and stuff, right? So, so awesome. So awesome. Goosebumps. Yes, yes, yes. Shane says, I need to hear this. Thank you, Hannah. Spot on. Yes. Carol says, can I book you for a spiritual reading? I need a realistic look. Yes, definitely. So psychic readings, there's only a couple places left in November, and it's not even November yet, and I'm almost booked out. So there's a couple of different options, right? If you were to book my 21-day shifter program or my 30-day reality shifter program, which is WhatsApp support, and there's a couple of phone calls and distance healings and stuff in those programs. If you want answers today, if you want answers like now, book one of those programs. Why? Because you get instant access to me on WhatsApp. Like, that's how those programs work. Yes, we get calls and stuff and whatever in there as well. But if you want an answer today and you want to start speaking today, book one of the programs, the 21-day shifter program or the 30-day reality shifter program. They're both $444. Both got different slightly things in them, so you can check them out. If you're happy to wait, okay, if you're happy to wait, my 45-minute psychic reading call, which is we get on a phone call and it's audio recorded, and you can keep that audio recording and listening to it over and over again. You're going to have to wait a little bit for that. It is a bit cheaper. It's $97, but you're going to have to wait probably 2 to 3 weeks, and November's almost booked out. So if you want answers today, the reality shifter or the 21-day shifter program is the one to get in to get help now. But if you're happy to wait, then book a psychic reading call. And yeah, that's the best way to work with me. So yeah, and by the way, on the reality shifter program and on the 21-day shifter program, you get a psychic reading in there. I think they're unlimited, actually. They're unlimited psychic readings, and we do them over WhatsApp. So you still get the actual psychic reading anyway. Pull cards, because you know what? They're always right on point, right? I love that so much. So yeah, so you can find all that on my website, or send me a message, or I usually post it on my page as well. So you can find that at realityawareness.com. So if you think this has helped somebody, guys, you can share it in a comment, like share it in the message to them. You can tag their name in the comments. If you're watching on YouTube, remember to like and subscribe. And remember, guys, only 2 more days before we start this powerful transcendence into freedom, allowing ourselves to transcend the black. Look, it's in there. We transcend the black into the complete freedom, but you have to have the willingness to do the work and to make the change. So I possess the power and the free will to create my own happiness. The free will. In the 12 divine steps to awakening your life purpose, which we're running for free next year in 2021 in my Reality Awareness support group, the divine step number 3 in awakening your life purpose is willingness. You have to have the willingness to speak. You have to willingness to make the change, right? You can go digging and meditating and all the things, but until you actually speak the words or make the change, this won't be felt in its full essence unless you're fully listening to your intuition. That means acting on it as well. I love you guys heaps. Speak soon. Mwah.